Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Venezianico Redentore Ultrablack 40. This watch is available from venezianico.com for €500. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in a cardboard box which is protected by this white cardboard outer sleeve, and as you can see the sleeve is fully embossed with the Venezianico logo and also Venezianico emblem, and on the top we also have a gilt emblem. So one removes the sleeve, and this is the watch box itself, made from white cardboard, and as you can see it also has the gilt emblem and Venezianico logo. So one removes the lid, which is a snug fit. And this is the base, fully upholstered with a contrasting grey velour fabric to a good standard, and there's a cutout in the base, and the padded pillow cushion is a nice snug fit in the cutout, fully upholstered with grey velour fabric to a good standard, and I like that it's a snug fit, so no risk of any damage to the piece when it's being shipped. So good quality presentation and very aesthetically pleasing. With regards to the items you get with the watch, it comes with this envelope, and I'll show you the items it contains. So inside the envelope we have three items. Firstly, this card, and on the reverse it invites you to join the Owners Club, club.venezianico.com, and it's signed by Alberto Morelli, the CEO, and Alessandro Morelli, the COO of Venezianico. You also get this card which opens up, and inside this is the certificate of authenticity and warranty, and I'm pleased to report that the Redentore Ultrablack 40 we're going to be looking at is covered by a 2-year international warranty, which is very good. So the date of purchase is filled in, and it's also signed by the seller, and you can download the owner's instruction manual from support.venezianico.com. And lastly, one also gets a map which is high definition, good quality printing. I'm going to open it up and show it to you. This is a map of the city of Venice, and Venezianico have highlighted on the map, as you can see, the various buildings which their models take the inspiration from. So if you look at the lower left portion of the map, you can see Redentore, which is the inspiration for the Redentore series of models, and on the map you can see the Basilica, which is the Basilica of Redentore, which was a masterpiece of the Venetian architect Andrea Palladio. So this is the inspiration where the Redentore Ultrablack's name comes from, the Basilica of Redentore in the city of Venice. So nice to get this map which shows the full city of Venice, and it's high definition, and they highlight all the buildings and give the explanation of the names of their models, and very interesting to look at. So just bear with me, I'm going to fold it back up, and then we'll continue. Now, you also get this Venezianico catalogue, and this covers the brand and also all the collections. So it's high definition pictures, and also it details the history of the brand, Alberto and Alessandro Morelli, the CEO and COO respectively. And very interesting read because it details all the design aspects and the influences of their pieces, the inspiration for their designs, and also the craft that goes into creating their pieces, the dials, the movements used, and also the genuine leather straps which are made in Italy. All their models are covered, and it's a very interesting read because they've got an extensive range in their collection, from dive pieces to daily wear pieces to dress pieces and chronographs, so every type of watch is covered, and beautiful high definition pictures, and also good quality explanations of each of the respective pieces. And also it includes the Watch of the Year award which they won, as you can see. So very nice catalogue to get. Now lastly, on the buckle and tang, it's secured by this plastic tag which also has the emblem, as you can see, and this fits around the buckle and tang and into the strap to hold this on the padded pillow cushion, so good attention to detail. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, we have a 40mm case diameter. We have a lug-to-lug measurement of 46.7mm, a thickness of 11.1mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The genuine leather strap, which is made in Italy, tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to the buckle and tang. Solid 316L grade stainless steel buckle and tang, mirror polish to the top side, underside and flanks, nice heavy gauge, large proportions to it, and engraved with high definition emblem. As you can see, the Venezianico cross emblem is engraved. I like the gauge of it and also like the quality of the mirror polishing. No sharp edges to it, no burrs. It's been deburred and chamfered very well, and it's got a nice heavy gauge, which means it's going to be robust and durable. It's going to last for a good length of time, but it's also very aesthetically pleasing. The genuine leather strap, which is made in Italy, is absolutely beautiful. 2 keepers, the first one is fixed, the second one slides, and they have nice wide widths to the keepers, so they're going to be durable and last for a long length of time. It is a thick strap. It tapers in thickness from the spring bar end down to the buckle and tang, but it also tapers in width. It's slightly thinner as we get down to the buckle. Plenty of holes in it to allow for fine-tuning the length, and it will fit a 6 to 7.5 inch wrist with no difficulty whatsoever. Plenty of holes to get the correct fit if you have a 6 to 7.5, but 7.5 is the maximum, as I'll show you. I can just get it fitted to my 8 inch wrist, but it would need to be half an inch longer to suffice. So it does feel stiff because it's a thick strap, but with daily wear, I'm confident it's going to break in and become very soft and supple. And it's not a padded strap, it's just simply one piece of leather, very thick at the spring bar end, as you can see, but then it tapers gradually down to the buckle and tang. So at the buckle and tang end, it's very soft and supple because it's thinner, but it does feel stiffer at the spring bar end. That's no harm because leather straps have a tendency to split and crack around the spring bar end. Now, one detail I like is if you look at the end of the strap, it's not straight. They've used curved spring bars, and the strap has a very snug fit around the curved profile in between the lugs. It doesn't have the gap which you get with straight spring bars. They've used a curved end to the strap and curved spring bars, as you can see, and that means it's got a nice curved profile which matches the curve of the case. So we have a flat sapphire crystal with clear AL coating on the underside. Blue tinted AL coating on the underside. And as you can see, the blue tinted anti-reflective coating does an outstanding job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the silver mirror polished Dolphin hands. The Dolphin hands are finished to perfection, very high quality polishing to them, and as you can see, they're not flat Dolphin hands, they've got facets, so they've got a 3D effect which catches the light and it contrasts beautifully with the ultra black dial. So the dial is painted with Japanese Muso black paint, and this absorbs 99.4% of light, and as you can see, it's a very deep looking dial as a result. The dial does sit very close to the underside of the sapphire crystal, so the legibility is good because there's a good contrast between the Dolphin hands, the silver applied emblem at 12 o'clock, and the ultra black dial. So the Japanese Muso black has a glossy finish to it, which is very deep because it absorbs so much light. 99.4% is incredible. And it's really noticeable because in direct light, it looks like a really deep black dial. And when you tilt the piece at an oblique angle, you can see the AL coating working, the blue tint of it has a blue hue to it. But the legibility is good because the silver hands do contrast very well with a glossy black dial. In terms of finish, it does look like a black enamel dial. That's the kind of glossy finish one gets with Japanese Muso black paint. Rather than being a matte style or a sunburst style, it has that characteristic glossy finish to it, which is very aesthetically pleasing. So this does look like a dress piece or alternatively a daily wear piece. And the ultra black dial does catch the light very well. It absorbs it, and of course the hands don't, so they reflect. So nice contrast, and I like the blue hue because if you look at the edge of the sapphire crystal, it has a slight bevel around the edge. It catches the light, so you've got this blue ring around the edge of the crystal when you tilt it at an oblique angle. Very interesting piece. The case is solid 316L grade stainless steel. Brush satin finishing to the flanks, which is longitudinal. Nice fine grained finish to the brush satin finishing. Beautiful luster to the flanks. And also on the crown guard side, we've got a nice deep undercut to the flanks. So it's been deburred and chamfered very well. No sharp edges to the undercut. The tips of the lugs have been chamfered very well. They don't have any sharp tips. Interesting contrast between the mirror polished tops of the lugs, which are curved profile, and the brush satin finish flanks, and I like the transition. It's got a nice crisp sharp edge which flows very nicely, nice curved profile to the lugs. So the undercut is very curved, and this means it wraps around the wrist rather than sitting on top of the wrist like a slab of 316L grade stainless steel. I like the large curved undercut. No sharp edges. The bezel has a nice domed profile to it, and it's mirror polished to a flawless standard. So the mirror polished bezel complements the mirror polished tops of the lugs, and there's also a nice contrast because we've got vertical brush satin finishing in between the lugs and also longitudinal brush satin finishing to the flanks. The flanks have a nice slender profile. They don't look slab-sided, and they've reduced the thickness of the head of the piece by having that large undercut. So I like the proportions of the domed bezel because it allows the sapphire crystal to project above it, and I like the way the edge of the crystal catches the light. Very aesthetically pleasing. So I'll show you the case back. Solid 316L grade stainless steel case back, and it's engraved with a satellite, as you can see. The quality of the engraving is very high definition, and around the circumference we have the specification of the piece and also the reference number, and it's very good quality. I like the quality of the engraving. It catches the light beautifully, as you can see. So it's got a matte bead blasted effect to the background of the engraving, and then the circumference of the screwed down stainless steel case back is mirror polished to a flawless finish, and then we've got 6 flathead screws which secure it. 50 meters of hermetic seal is perfectly acceptable for a daily wear piece or a dress piece. So I think they've made the correct decision by not increasing the water resistance to 100 meters or 200 meters, because that would mean a thicker case back would be needed. They've made the case back nice and thin and low profile, and the benefit of it having a flat profile to it is it means it sits very snug to the wrist. It's very comfortable to wear for long periods of time, but also it reduces the overall thickness of the piece down to only 11.1. 11.1 millimeters is the kind of thickness one would expect with a manual wind piece or a quartz power piece, not an automatic, which is powered by the Seiko NH35A automatic. Of course, with a rotor, one needs extra clearance beneath the case back, and therefore often NH35A powered pieces have bubble back case backs. So 50 meters means a nice thin case back, and also they've used screws rather than screwing the case back down to the head of the piece, and that also means that they can use a very thin case back, and 50 meters is good enough, and I like that it's very flat, as you can see. So one thing I would like to see Venezianico update is the spring bars. Now they are curved, which is good because the ends of the strap are curved, and as I've detailed, the benefit of that is the end of the strap has a nice curved profile to it rather than being straight, so one doesn't get a gap in between the spring bar and the end of the strap and the head of the piece. So I like the curved profile to the end of the strap, which matches the curve of the case, but it's going to be difficult to remove this because if you look, it is a very thick leather strap at the spring bar end, and in order to get a spring bar tool in between the edge of the strap and also the interior of the lugs, it's going to be very difficult, a very tight fit to compress the stiff leather strap. I would like to see them update from using conventional spring bars to using quick release spring bars, because that would negate the need of a spring bar tool, and it would make it much easier to remove the leather strap if you want to exchange it for an alternative strap, because as it stands you have to use a spring bar tool, and it's going to be a very tight fit to get a spring bar in between the edge of the thick strap and the mirror polished lugs. The problem with mirror polished lugs like this is they're prone to being scuffed and scratched easily with a spring bar tool, so it's going to be very difficult to get the spring bar in without scuffing and scratching the lugs, which are mirror polished to a beautiful finish. They've got nice chamfers to the tips, so there's no sharp edges, but I just think if it had quick release spring bars, that would make it much easier to remove this thick leather strap and exchange it. Quality of the finishing to the underside of the head of the piece is outstanding. The mirror polishing to the underside of the head of the piece is flawless, no sharp edges, and the crown guards are correctly proportioned. They do a good job of protecting the crown, but also look aesthetically very pleasing with the mirror polished tops of the crown guards, and the flow of the luster of the brushed satin finishing to the flanks works very well. It's a nice curved profile to them, and I like the proportion of the coin edge finished crown. So the crown has a matte background to it, and it's signed with an embossed Venezianico cross emblem, as you can see, very nicely proportioned. No sharp edges to the crown because they've deburred and chamfered it, so the tips of the coin edge teeth, and the crown has a conical profile rather than being parallel and straight, and it looks very nice. It's very aesthetically pleasing. I like the conical profile to it, and I like the coin edge finishing. It's correctly proportioned. You can get good purchase with your index finger and thumb, and because it's a push-pull crown rather than a screw-down crown, in the closed position we can manually wind it to its maximum 41-hour power reserve. Nice medium resistance to it. One can feel the tension in the mainspring gradually building up to its maximum 41-hour power reserve. It feels nice and smooth. The NH35A is a pleasure to manually wind. Feels very robust and reliable. Now, the negative of this being NH35A powered versus NH38 is it does have a phantom date setting position. The NH35A does have a date complication, and the date wheel is present beneath this dial. So when you pull it out, the crown to the first click position, it is actually a phantom date setting position. When you rotate the crown anti-clockwise, you can feel the dates wheel clicking round, the quick set complication. You can hear it and feel it clicking over to the next day of the month. So the first click is a phantom date setting position. Putting it out to the second click position hacks the movement, and if you look at the second hand, you can see it's now stopped dead, so it's possible to set the time precisely to the second with the NH35A. I would like to see Venezianico update the movement to the NH38 rather than the NH35A, because the NH38 is the no date version that doesn't have a date complication, and that would delete the phantom date setting position. There would simply be one click position on the crown for hacking the movement and setting the time, because as it stands for the NH35A, we have a phantom date setting position and it has 2 clicks on the crown. The other thing is, I would like to see them upgrade the movement they're using at this price point of €500, because at this price point one would expect a higher grade, such as the Sellita SW200-1 or the Miyota Caliber 9039 respectively. They are the kind of grade of premium movements one expects at €500. The NH35A is perfectly acceptable below the €300 price point, but when one gets past €300 and certainly at €500, it has to be a higher grade of movement. SW200-1 or 9039, they do suffice. So pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and that restarts the movement. You can see the second hand begins to sweep around the dial at the characteristic 3 Hz sweep of 21,600 vibrations per hour. Now this is subjective, but I personally prefer the smoother sweep of a 4 Hz movement, such as the SW200-1 or the 9039, because they run at 28,800 vibrations per hour. So some collectors dislike the stutter or judder of the NH35A second hand, which runs at 3 Hz. It has that characteristic stutter or judder. It doesn't sweep as smoothly as a 4 Hz sweep, and I think that's subjective, but I personally prefer the smoother sweep of a 4 Hz movement. So that's another consideration. So push-pull crown works well, 50 meters of hermetic seal is good, feels smooth to manually wind, the hacking works well, the negative is the phantom date setting position. Right, so I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, as I've detailed, this genuine leather strap, which is Italian made, will fit from a 6 to a 7.5-inch wrist, but as you can see, the end of the strap is just a fraction too short. I can engage it in the first fixed keeper, but it would need to be an additional 1/2 inch to 1 inch longer in order to engage the end of the strap in the second sliding keeper. But however, for the majority of collectors with a 6 to 7.5-inch wrist, this genuine leather strap will suffice. I like the looks of the buckle, it's nice and heavy, and the tang is also largely proportioned, and the mirror polishing is very good, so it looks like a nice, well proportioned, robust buckle and tang, suitable for a daily wear piece. It's going to be durable and robust. The strap is surprisingly comfortable. It's very smooth on the underside and the top side, and it's got a nice matte finish to it in black, nice grained finish, but rather than being glossy and shiny, it's matte, and that does actually complement the Musso black dial, which is more glossy. But they work very well because this has got a sheen to it, but it's matte rather than glossy finish, but the dial is more shiny and glossy, but they work very well together. So proportions of the piece are very good. 40mm head of the piece gives nice wrist presence. It's got a relatively compact lug-to-lug of 46.7. 48mm is the perfect sweet spot, regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7-inch wrist or a 7 to 8-inch wrist respectively. At 46.7, it is slightly below the sweet spot of 48, so it's a compact lug-to-lug, and of course the curved profile of the lugs and the undercut to the flanks means it wraps around the wrist very well. Gives a nice snug fit. If you look at the tips of the lugs, you can see, due to them curving down, minimal gap underneath the tips, and the curved end of the strap means there's a very close snug fit to the end of the strap. They've made the correct decision by using curved spring bars rather than straight, and a curved end to the strap, which better closes up the gap. So looks very good. So snug fit to the wrist, very low profile, 11.1. They've made the correct decision by using a flat sapphire crystal rather than a double dome sapphire crystal, or alternatively boxed top hat profile, because that would add 2mm of thickness to the piece and make it 13mm thick. This is only 11.1. It's one of the lowest profile, thinnest NH35A power pieces I have reviewed, and I've reviewed a plethora, hundreds of watches using the NH35A, and often they are 13mm plus. This is only 50mm, but the benefit is it's got a nice thin sapphire crystal and a nice thin stainless steel caseback. So they've reduced the thickness down to only 11.1. So exceptionally thin piece, and it's very good. Doesn't have a deep rehorts beneath the sapphire crystal. If you look at the rehorts, you can see how shallow it is. So that means the sapphire crystal sits very close to the Musso black dial, and that reduces the reflection but also improves the legibility because the dial isn't sunk very deep. Often with NH35A powered pieces, the dial is very deep, it's very far away from the underside of the crystal, and that creates poor legibility because the dial is too far away and the handset is too far away. But look how close the handset is to the underside of the sapphire crystal, very close. And I really like the brushed satin finish to the rehort being so shallow. They deserve credit because it is difficult to reduce the depth of the rehorts with an NH35A because you are limited by the tall cannon pinion stack height of the handset. The NH35A does have a relatively tall hand stack height on the cannon pinion versus lower profile movements such as the Miyota 9019 and the Miyota 9039 respectively, which have low cannon pinion stack heights. So at 11.1, I'm very impressed that this is powered by the NH35A. It's the kind of thickness one would expect with a manual wind or a quartz powered piece, not an automatic, and very aesthetically pleasing. I like the ultra black dial, which is Japanese Musso black. And also, the mirror polished Dolphin hands have a 3D effect. They're not flat. I like the facets because they catch light, and they also complement the silver mirror polished applied emblem at 12 o'clock. Gorgeous looking piece. It could be used as a daily wear piece at 40mm, or potentially it could be used as a dress piece, and I like that versatility of it. I think the black dial and the black strap are suitable for both a daily wear piece and also a dress piece. So nice compact lug to lug. I like the curved undercut, and the mirror polished bezel complements the mirror polished tops of the lugs. The quality of the finishing is very good, no sharp edges, and I like the edge of the sapphire crystal catching the light. Very good looking piece. Feel good factor is good. Feels very comfortable to wear for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day, because the lack of heft. One of my favourite aspects of it is this is only 80 grams on the leather strap. Usually with NH35A powered pieces, I would expect them to be in excess of 90 grams on a leather strap. 80 grams is exceptional. So it's a thin case back, thin sapphire crystal. All of those features reduce the heft. 80 grams really is the minimum for a 40mm head of the piece, powered by an automatic such as the NH35A. So comfort level is 10 out of 10. Feel good factor is 10 out of 10. Quality of the finishing is also outstanding because we've got no sharp edges to any of the facets of the case. The lugs, the undercuts, the flanks, every edge of it is deburred and chamfered very well. So proportions are good. It's a compact case. It will fit you regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist or a 7 to 8 inch wrist. It's also available in a 36mm version, and I would say if you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist, you may prefer the 36, which has a more compact lug to lug, and of course the diameter is 4mm smaller. So if you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist, I would recommend the 36mm version of the Redentore Ultrablack, but if you have a 7 to 8 inch wrist, I recommend this 40 because the proportions are very good. 20mm lug width is correct for a 40mm head of the piece. So let's discuss the movement used. You'll all be familiar with the Seiko NH35A automatic. It has 24 joules and it runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. It's made in Japan and it's been in service since 2011. So at this stage, in 2025, it's a reliable, well-proven workhorse movement. No reliability issues whatsoever. The build's quality, quality control, materials are all excellent. Now the negative is, as I've detailed, it has a phantom date setting position. It is a date complication piece. I would prefer if they use the NH38 to delete the date complication and therefore delete the phantom date setting position. 41-hour power reserve is perfectly acceptable. The stated accuracy of the NH35A is -20 to +40 seconds per day, so a rather wide accuracy range. However, I'm pleased to report that Venezianico are well regulating the NH35As they're using. This one is running consistently at +6 seconds per day when it's fully wound to its maximum 41-hour power reserve. +6 is well within the -20 to +40 stated accuracy, and it is in fact chronometer accuracy. Chronometer grade is -4 to +6. So at +6, it's been regulated in 5 positions to chronometer accuracy of +6. So good accurate movements, reliable, well proven workhorse movement made in Japan. Hacking works well, hand winding works well. The only negative is the date complication, which is not needed on this piece because there's no date window. So lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch meet 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So we're looking at a mid-tier piece. The mid-tier starts at €500. €500 piece with an NH35A. I'm going to declare it excellent quality in terms of the finishing, build quality, quality control, and the specification. The AR coating, sapphire crystal, polishing of the dolphin hands, and of course, the Japanese Musso black dial is very well executed. But, however, the movement is the weak point. I think the NH35A is acceptable below €300, but when we're at the mid-tier price point of 500, it has to be a premium grade of movement, something higher grade such as the SW200-1 or the 9039 respectively. If Venezianico upgraded the movement to an SW200-1 or a 9039, then yes, I would say it was good value or excellent value at the €500 price point. But I can't say that with an NH35A at €500. It's okay. The quality of the piece is excellent. The value is okay. But very aesthetically pleasing. Feel good factor is good, comfort level is good, and the quality of the finishing, build quality, quality control are all outstanding. So very good looking piece, and I do like the Japanese Musso black dial. It's a very beautiful dial. So I'm going to recommend it to you for consideration. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Venezianico Redentore Ultrablack 40. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.